The decision sky outside was a soft orange, fading slowly into the deeper blues of evening. Sundar Pichai sat alone in his home office, surrounded by silence. The usual buzz of meetings and messages had stopped. His laptop screen was dark, the reflection of his tired face barely visible in the glass. He leaned back in his chair, hands folded across his stomach, and closed his eyes for a moment. He tried to enjoy the quiet. He tried to feel peace, but something inside him stirred. Something didn't feel right. Just hours ago, he had led one of the most important meetings of the quarter. The executives were pleased. The financial reports were strong. The projections showed growth. Again, the press would call it another success. The world would say he had done well. But Sundar didn't feel it. Not really. Success had become numbers. Charts. Reports. Headlines. It was all so far from the feeling he once knew, the feeling of building something real. Something human. He stood slowly and walked to the window. Outside, the hills of Silicon Valley rolled peacefully in the distance. The lights of the city blinked like stars beneath the darkening sky. He watched people walking their dogs, driving home, jogging on sidewalks. Everyday people doing everyday things, not thinking about shareholders, not fighting for market share, just living. His mind drifted, as it often did, back to Chennai. He remembered walking with his father to the bus stop in the mornings. The air always smelled of fresh dosa and petrol. The buses were loud, packed, sweaty, but they were full of life. Vendors shouted from roadside stalls, selling chai and vada. A man played a flute near the train station. Everything was noise and motion and heat. And in the middle of it all, Sundar had felt connected. Part of something bigger. His family didn't have much money. They didn't eat out often. But once every few months, as a treat, they would go to a small fast food restaurant. It wasn't a big place. Just a few plastic chairs, cold drinks, and fried snacks. He remembered watching the workers behind the counter, how fast their hands moved, how polite they were even when the place was full and the orders kept coming. Sundar had admired them. He didn't say it then, but he had. There was dignity in their work, honesty. They were not building apps or designing chips, but they were serving people, making them feel seen, even just for a minute. He took a deep breath, eyes still on the window. Maybe that's what he had lost. Maybe. In all the noise of success, he had drifted too far from what mattered. He was surrounded by brilliant minds, world-changing projects, endless possibilities. But he missed the small things, the simple things, the things that make you feel human. And then, almost without thinking, he whispered it out loud. I want to work at McDonald's. He laughed softly, surprised by his own voice. But the idea didn't leave. It stayed. And the longer he thought about it, the more right it felt. He didn't want cameras. He didn't want anyone to know. He didn't want it to be a show. He just wanted to do it, quietly, like anyone else. To wear the uniform, to feel the rush of the kitchen, to take orders, to clean tables, to serve. He didn't need to prove anything. Not to the world, not to the board, not even to himself. He just needed to remember what it meant to work, what it meant to connect, what it meant to be part of a team, not as a leader or an icon, but as a worker doing his best for a few hours. Just like everyone else stopped the next morning, Sundar called his personal assistant. He kept his voice calm, casual. I need a favor, he said. Find a McDonald's near here. Somewhere quiet, not too crowded. And talk to the manager. Tell them there's someone who wants to work for one day. No media, no attention. Just a one-day trial. His assistant paused. Who's the person? Me, Sundar said. There was silence on the other. And then a soft laugh. You're serious? Completely. A few days later, Sundar received a simple text. You're scheduled for next Monday. 6 a.m. Mountain View. Manager's name is Marie. She knows nothing about you, just that you want to help. He smiled. He hadn't felt this nervous in years. On Sunday night, Sundar stood in front of the mirror wearing his uniform. It felt strange. The shirt was stiff, the pants a little too loose. The visor looked awkward on his head. He looked at himself and laughed again, but there was something freeing about it. He wasn't Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google. He was just Sundar, a man in a uniform, ready to work. He packed a small bag with a water bottle and a snack. He didn't need much. He left his phone on silent, no emails, no alerts, just him and the job ahead. He barely slept that night. Part of it was nerves, but part of it was something else. Excitement, anticipation, like a child waiting for the school trip that Monday morning arrived quietly. The streets were still empty. Sundar drove himself, wearing a hoodie over his uniform. The McDonald's was a small one near a strip mall. He parked in the corner, away from the lights. He sat in the car for a moment, staring at the building. The golden arches glowed softly in the early dawn. He took a deep breath, opened the door, and stepped into the cool morning air. He was about to walk into a world he hadn't seen in years, a world of orders. Spills, laughter, pressure, kindness, and chaos. A world where no one knew his name. As he walked toward the door, 100 thoughts rushed through his mind. What if someone recognized him? What if he failed? What if he couldn't keep up? He pushed them aside. This wasn't about pride. This was about presence. He pulled open the glass door. The smell of coffee, oil, and fresh breakfast hit him all at once. Marie, the manager, looked up from behind the counter. She was in her late 40s with kind eyes and a tired smile. She gave him a nod. You must be Sundar, she said. You're early. Good. Let's get you started. And just like that, it began. But Sundar had no idea what the next 12 hours would bring. Not the pressure. Not the emotions. Not the unexpected people. And definitely not the moment that would change everything. Asterisk. Behind the counter, the clock on the wall read 6:02 a.m. The fluorescent lights buzzed quietly overhead. Sundar followed Marie behind the counter, his heart beating a little faster than usual. Everything smelled like syrup, eggs, and cleaning solution. The kitchen area was already alive with motion. Machines hummed. Timers beeped. 2 employees worked in sync, flipping patties and wrapping sandwiches with fast, practiced hands. Marie handed Sundar a small name tag. It said, Sundar, in black letters. He'd pinned it to his shirt, feeling oddly nervous, like a student on his first day at school. You ever worked in fast food before? Marie asked, pulling on a pair of gloves. Sundar shook his head. No, ma'am. She chuckled. Don't call me ma'am. Makes me feel old. Just Marie is fine. She handed him a headset and began showing him the basic layout. She pointed to the drink machine, the fry station, the register, and the drive-through window. First, you watch, then you do. If you mess up, no panic. We all mess up. Just keep moving. That's the rhythm here. Sundar nodded, trying to absorb everything. It was fast, it was loud, but it was also strangely beautiful. Like a dance, everyone moving in patterns. Every beep meant something. Every shot was part of the music. Within 10 minutes, Sundar was on the front register, watching Marie take orders. Her fingers flew over the screen, her voice clear but kind. Good morning. Would you like to try the sausage McMuffin today? Okay. Anything to drink? Perfect. That'll be $4.75. Sundar watched, fascinated. The speed, the tone, the small smiles. It wasn't just about food, it was about human contact, even if just for seconds. After a few minutes, Marie stepped aside. Your turn, she said. His hands trembled slightly as he touched the screen. A man stepped up, looking tired and a little grumpy. Egg McMuffin and black coffee, he mumbled. Sundar tapped slowly. He missed the combo button. He had to go back. The screen beeped angrily. Sorry, Sundar said, fumbling. First day. The man sighed, impatient. Marie stepped beside him and fixed it with 2 taps. You'll get it, she whispered. The order went through. Sundar handed the man his receipt. No smile came back. But it didn't matter. He had completed his first order. By 7:30 a.m., the restaurant was packed. The drive-through line wrapped around the building. Kids screamed. Coffee spilled. A fire alarm went off in the back. Someone dropped a box of napkins. It was chaos, but it was a living, breathing kind of chaos. Sundar stayed at the register, slowly picking up the pace. He made mistakes, forgot a drink, gave the wrong change. One woman snapped at him for taking too long. Her words stung more than he expected. "Do you even know what you're doing?" she asked, annoyed. He apologized softly, fixing the error. Marie didn't say anything, but she gave him a look. Not judgment, not sympathy, just a quiet understanding. She had seen that look in people before, timers, overwhelmed but trying, and she respected that. At 9 a.m., Marie gave him a break. He sat at a corner table, sipping water, watching. The others, he noticed a young woman in the kitchen, maybe 20 years old, moving like lightning between stations. She tossed fries, poured drinks, wiped trays, and somehow managed to joke with the others while doing it. Her name tag read, Kenya. "She's our rock star," Marie said, sitting beside him. "Works 2 jobs. Helps her grandma. Never complains." Sundar looked at Kenya with quiet admiration. Her face was focused. Not bored, not angry, just determined, strong. "Does she ever rest?" he asked. Marie smiled. "Not really." "But you won't hear her say that?" Sundar felt something stir in his chest. This wasn't just a job for Kenya. It was survival. It was love for her family, for her dignity, for herself. He stood up, ready to return. Marie handed him a mop. "Let's see how you handle the lobby." Cleaning. The floor wasn't glamorous. It didn't require a degree. It didn't demand strategy. But it was real work. Honest work. As he pushed the mop across the tile, he heard conversations at the tables. A father helping his daughter with math homework. An elderly man sipping coffee, alone. 2 teens laughing over breakfast burritos. Little stories unfolding. Around him, he cleaned silently, listening, observing, feeling. He wasn't fixing code. He wasn't designing hardware. He was wiping crumbs and spilled ketchup. And yet, it felt got grounding. Around 11 a.m. Something unexpected happened. A man in a sharp business suit walked in, talking loudly on his phone. Sundar saw him from behind and froze. He recognized the voice. It was Rajiv, one of the investors, who had interviewed him back when he was still a young engineer. Rajiv didn't see him. He stepped up to the counter, still on the phone. Sundar backed away, ducking behind a drink station. His heart raced. What if Rajiv saw him? Would he laugh? Would he tell others? Why did that idea bother him so much? Marie glanced at him, puzzled. "You okay?" He nodded quickly. "Just needed a second." The moment passed. Rajiv got his order and left, never noticing the man mopping behind the machines. But Sundar didn't feel relief. He felt small, vulnerable, ashamed of feeling ashamed. Why should it matter who saw him? Wasn't this the point? Wasn't this exactly why he came? He went back to work, quieter now, more reflective. Around noon, Marie called everyone together. "Rush is coming," she said. "Let's breathe, let's stay sharp, and let's keep looking out for each other." The team nodded. Kenya gave Sundar a thumbs up. "You got this, rookie." He smiled. Something inside him relaxed. The lunch rush hit hard. Lines stretched. To the door, orders piled up. The air felt hot and tight. But Sundar found his rhythm. He passed drinks, handed out trays, wiped counters, said thank you. His shirt clung to his back. His legs ached. His feet throbbed. But he kept going. Not because he had to, but because it mattered. Around 2 p.m. Something happened that none of them saw coming. A little boy ran into the restaurant crying. His hands shaking. Marie rushed to him. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "I can't find my mom," he sobbed. The room fell quiet. The team stopped moving. Marie knelt beside him, calm and steady. "What's your name?" "Liam." Kenya appeared with a cup of juice. Sundar stood frozen, unsure what to do. Marie called 911. They waited. Sundar sat beside the boy, gently. "I'm Sundar. We're gonna help you, okay?" Liam nodded, eyes wide with fear. 15 minutes later, a woman burst through the door, tears running down her face. She spotted the boy and fell to her knees, but wrapping him in her arms, everyone in the store clapped. And in that moment, Sundar felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Not because of algorithms, not because of market share, but because he had been present, because he had cared. As the shift began to slow, Marie pulled him aside. "You did good today," she said softly. "You didn't have to, but you did." Sundar looked around. The tables, the trays, the people, they deserve to be seen, he said. "And respected." Marie nodded. "Yeah, we all do." Sundar checked the clock. His shift was ending, but he wasn't ready to leave, because something had changed. Something real. Asterisk the lesson, the back room of the McDonald's was small, quiet, and filled with the smell of coffee grounds and cleaning spray. Sundar sat on an overturned milk crate, shoulders hunched forward, shirt slightly damp with sweat. His shift was technically over, but he hadn't moved. He didn't want to. Not yet. Kenya came in, holding a mop, hair tied back, eyes tired, but still full of fire. "You survived your first day," she said, leaning against the wall. Sundar smiled. "Barely." "You did better than most," she said, gently. "Some don't even make it through breakfast rush." He looked at her, studying the small lines of exhaustion beneath her eyes, the subtle weariness in her stance. It wasn't just physical. It was deeper than that. It was the kind of tired that came from holding up the weight of an entire world alone. "Marie told me about your grandma," he said quietly. Kenya looked down at the mop handle in her hands, then nodded. "Yeah, she's everything to me. Raised me when my mom walked out. I owe her everything." Sundar paused. "And you work another job too?" Kenya chuckled without humor. "Yeah, late nights at a gas station. Not exactly glamorous, but it pays the bills." "Do you ever sleep?" "Not really," she said, shrugging. "Sleep feels like a luxury sometimes." Sundar didn't speak. What could he say? He had been surrounded by abundance for years. Private jets, 5-star hotels, rooms full of executives. But in this small break room, sitting beside Kenya, he felt the weight of something far more real, something humbling. Kenya suddenly looked at him more closely. "Hey," she said slowly. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "You don't talk like most people around here, and you don't move like them either." "No offense, but you single quotes doctrine." Sundar held her gaze, unsure whether to lie or deflect, before he could. "Answer." Marie walked in. "Shift's over. You're good to go." He stood up and dusted off his pants. "Thanks for today," he said sincerely. "It meant more than you know." Marie gave him a look, half smile, half question. "You ever need a second job? We'll find you a spot." He smiled and nodded. Outside, the sun had shifted high into the sky. The heat made the air shimmer. Sundar walked slowly to his car, hands in his pockets, head still full of voices and faces from inside. He turned once, looking back at the building. It was just a McDonald's, just a small restaurant in a quiet town. But today, it had been a mirror. It had shown him things he hadn't seen in a long time. He sat in the car, but he didn't start the engine. He took a deep breath, then pulled out his phone. He stared at it for a long moment, debating. Finally, he opened his text messages. Message 2. Assistant, can you set a private meeting with HR? I want to talk about something. He didn't explain more, because he wasn't entirely sure what he wanted yet, but he knew something had to change. The next day, back in the office, Sundar sat in his corner office again. Glass walls, tall ceilings, the view of the bay, everything was clean, silent, controlled. And yet, he couldn't stop thinking about Kenya wiping sweat from her forehead between orders. Or Marie calming down a frightened child. Or the way one customer had thanked him so gently after he brought a tray of food. In the silence of his office. Those small, human moments echoed louder than any quarterly report ever had. A knock on the door broke his thoughts. It was Jason, one of his senior directors. "Morning, Sundar. Quick thing. There's a team of interns waiting for you in the main conference room. They're doing a tour, and HR asked if you'd say a few words." He nodded slowly. "Sure." Give me 2 minutes. Uh, Jason left. Sundar stood and looked at himself in the mirror on the wall. He was back in his suit, polished shoes, clean shave. The version of himself the world always saw. But underneath, something was different. The walk to the conference room felt longer than usual. Every step seemed heavier, more uncertain. When he entered, a small group of young interns turned to him. With wide eyes and eager expressions, they expected wisdom, insight, stories of power. But Sundar paused at the front of the room. He looked at their faces, fresh and full of hope. Then he set aside the note cards someone had prepared for him, and instead, he told them the truth. Yesterday, he began, I worked a shift at a McDonald's. No cameras, no announcements. I wore the uniform. I mopped floors. I took orders. I made mistakes. The room went silent, and in that short time, I learned more about respect, effort, and humanity than in many of the meetings I've sat through as a CEO. A hand slowly went up in the back. A young woman, nervous. Why did you do it? Sundar smiled gently. Because success can make you blind, and I needed to see again. Another intern asked, what did you learn? He thought carefully before answering that real value doesn't always come from titles or bank accounts. Sometimes it comes from how you treat the person handing you a cup of coffee, or how you speak to the person cleaning your table. The interns looked at each other, unsure if they were allowed to clap or not. Sundar ended simply. Never forget that the people who do the hardest jobs often have the quietest voices. Listen to them. Learn from them. Respect them. He left the room with a strange feeling. Peace. Later that afternoon, a quiet email landed in his inbox. It was from Kenya. Subject. Question message. Were you being honest yesterday? Are you who I think you are? He read it 3 times. He stared at the screen, then began typing slowly. Asterisk response. Yes. And I'm sorry I didn't tell you. But I needed to understand things I had forgotten. And you helped me do that. If you're ever willing, I'd like to talk more. Maybe over lunch. My treat this time? He hit send. A few minutes passed. Then another email came. Kenya's reply. Okay. But only if it's real food. No fast food. I've had enough fries to last a lifetime. He smiled to himself. But as he leaned back in his chair, another notification popped up. A news alert. Headline. Mystery worker at Mountain View McDonald's might be Google CEO. Sources say. His stomach dropped. He clicked on the article. Blurry phone photos. Rumors. Comments. Someone had recognized him after all. And the story was spreading. Asterisk. Sundar's hands rested on the edge of his desk. It was out now. The one thing he had tried to keep quiet. But maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. Maybe. It was time to stop hiding. Asterisk. The reveal next morning began with a strange silence in Sundar's house. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like something is waiting. He sat at the edge of his bed, phone in hand, eyes fixed on the screen. The news story had gone viral overnight. A grainy photo of a man in a McDonald's uniform wiping a table was making waves across social media. Some said it was a prank. Others called it a publicity stunt. A few had doubts. But most people believed what they were seeing. That's definitely him. Why would a CEO work at McDonald's? This is either insane or brilliant. He's just trying to look humble. No way it's real. The comments multiplied by the minute. Speculation turned into judgment. Judgment turned into firestorms. And firestorms, Sundar knew, always got louder before they faded. His email inbox was already full of journalists, publicists, colleagues. Some asked for interviews. Others demanded explanations. A few begged him to deny it, but Sundar didn't type a single word. Not yet. He stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the city. Cars moved like ants through the streets. Offices lit up. Baristas prepared morning coffee. People began another day. None of them knew what would happen next. At 9 a.m. He walked into the Google office. The building was sleek, quiet, familiar. But today, it felt different. Like every wall was holding its breath. As he passed by the reception desk, A young intern looked up, paused, then quickly looked away, clearly recognizing him. Clearly aware of the rumor. The elevator ride was silent. Even the usual cheerful chime as it reached his floor seemed muted. When he stepped into his office, Prisha from communications was already waiting. "We need to talk," she said, closing the door behind them. She looked concerned, but not angry, just overwhelmed. "The media's going crazy," she said, placing her phone on the table. "They're calling it a marketing strategy, but we didn't plan anything. We need to release a statement. Something simple. Something neutral." Sundar nodded slowly, thinking. Then he said, "What if we told the truth?" Prisha blinked. "You mean ... admit it?" "Yes," he said. "It wasn't a campaign. It wasn't for cameras. I just wanted to feel something again. I wanted to understand what it means to serve, not lead." Prisha looked at him carefully. She had worked with him for 6 years, and in all that time, she had never seen him look quite like this, so certain, so open, and somehow lighter. "If we go that route," she said, "people might still attack it. They'll say it's a stunt no matter what." "Then let them," Sundar replied. "If a little discomfort brings attention to people who deserve more respect, maybe it's worth it." She nodded. "I'll draft something." By noon, the official statement went live. Short, direct, sincere. "Yes, it was me. I spent one day working at McDonald's to remember what it feels like to serve others without being recognized. No cameras. No fame, just people. I saw dignity in everyday work and strength in the quiet efforts of those around me. It changed me. I don't regret it." The response was immediate. Some people rolled their eyes. Some made jokes. But many were moved. "This made me cry. I work in fast food and we're always invisible." Finally, someone with power saying what? "Our lives are like..." Respect to Sundar for doing this without expecting praise. The story exploded even further. News anchors discussed it. Influencers shared it. School teachers showed it to their students. It became something larger than just a story. It became a symbol. By late afternoon, Sundar received a text from Marie. "So, it was you," he smiled. Then he called her. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you," he said, his voice honest. Marie laughed softly. "You were terrible at the register. I should have known." He laughed too. "Thank you for letting me in," he added. "You didn't act like a CEO, she said. "You acted like someone who cared. That's what matters." They spoke for a few minutes more. When the call ended, Sundar stared at his screen for a long time. Then another message popped up. From Kenya, subject, "Lunch still on?" He replied immediately, "Yes. Tomorrow. Anywhere you want." The next day, they met at a small Indian restaurant tucked between two bookstores downtown. It was quiet, cozy, the kind of place with handwritten menus and a bell over the door. Kenya arrived wearing jeans and a hoodie. She looked tired but calm. They sat near the window. The waitress brought them chai. The smell reminded Sundar of home. "So," Kenya said, stirring her cup, "why'd you do it, really?" Sundar took a slow breath. "Because I forgot what." "It meant to be close to the ground," he said. "I've spent years in rooms full of powerful people. I've talked about strategy, innovation, growth. But somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling the weight of ordinary moments." Kenya watched him carefully, her face unreadable. "And you thought flipping burgers would fix that?" "I didn't know what it would do," he said honestly. "I just knew I had to try." She nodded slowly. "Well, you're lucky you came to our store. Marie doesn't let people fake it." "I know," he said with a smile. Kenya leaned back. "You were actually pretty decent by the end of the shift." "High praise," he said, raising his chai in a mock toast. Then her voice softened. "You saw me. That day, not just as a worker, but as a person. Most people don't." He lowered his cup. "You deserve to be seen." A pause followed. Then Kenya asked a question that hit him harder than anything the media had said. "So, what are you going to do now?" The question hung in the air. Not what would the company do, not what would the media say, but what would he do now that he had seen the truth? Sundar didn't answer right away. But inside, a decision was forming. He would go back, not just once, not as a gimmick, not as an experiment. He would create something real, a bridge dot between the boardrooms and the break rooms. He would start small, internships, training, visibility. He would talk to other CEOs. He would challenge them to do the same, not with cameras, but with humility. This was more than a story. Now, it was a mission. Asterisk the movement. Sky was overcast on the morning. Sundar made the first call. He sat in his office, but he wasn't working on code or strategy. Instead, he stared at a short list of names on a yellow notepad. These weren't engineers or analysts. They were CEOs, leaders of some of the most powerful companies in the world. Amazon, Apple, Meta, Tesla, Walmart. He had written the names by hand, not for formality, but because it made it feel personal. He wanted this to be real, not another corporate collaboration or sanitized press event. This was different. He picked up the phone and called his first contact, Maria Carter, the CEO of one of the largest grocery chains in the country. They had worked together before on a climate initiative. She was thoughtful, sharp, and pragmatic. If anyone could understand what he was trying to do, it was her. "Hey, Maria." "It's Sundar," he began, after she answered. "Hi," she said, warm but curious. "What's up? I saw the article. Quite the stir." He smiled. "Yeah, wasn't the plan. It's got people talking." Half my board asked if it was real. "It was," he said. "And that's actually why I'm calling." He paused, then said it plainly. "I want to invite you to do the same. One day. Undercover. Real uniform. Real work. Pick a store. No cameras. Just experience." There was silence. Then a small laugh. "You're serious?" "Completely." Maria didn't answer right away. Sundar waited. Finally, she spoke. "I think I get it. And yes, I'll do it." Relief spread through his chest like sunlight through clouds. "Thank you," he said quietly. That was the first yes. The second came the next day, from an old friend at a major logistics firm. He agreed instantly. "People forget where the heart of our operations lives," he said. "This might remind them." By the end of the week, Sundar had 6 CEOs committed. Each would spend a day shadowing or working alongside frontline staff. No media, no announcements. Just quiet observation, humility, and service. They called it the ground floor project. Marie was the first person he told. He visited her store one morning before opening. She was sweeping the entryway, earbuds, and I still half asleep. "Morning?" he said. She turned, surprised but not shocked. She had a way of sensing things before they happened. "You again," she said. "Thought you'd be too famous to come back." "I'm not coming back to work," he said. "Not today anyway. I wanted to thank you, and I wanted to ask for your help." She raised an eyebrow. He explained the idea. The movement. The purpose. Marie leaned on her broom and listened. When he finished, she didn't say anything for a moment. Then she nodded once. "If you're serious, I'm in." Sundar's heart lifted. He wasn't doing this alone. A few weeks later, word began to leak, this time on purpose. Sundar published a short piece online. No corporate logos, no branding, just a personal message. This isn't about making headlines. This is about making eye contact, about remembering what dignity looks like at every level of work. We talk a lot about innovation, but real innovation begins when we see people, not just performance. I challenge every leader reading this. Spend a day where your customers live. You might come back different. Within hours, the post was trending. Most people supported it. Others mocked it. Great. Another rich guy pretending to care. How about they fix wages instead? Still, it's a start. But not everyone. Like what Sundar was doing. One person in particular, someone who had never shied away from attention, made his disagreement very clear. Brad Kessler, the CEO of a fast-rising tech company known for its aggressive culture, posted a blunt response. "I hire workers. I don't pretend to be one. This is a distraction, not leadership." It hit hard. The media latched onto it instantly. CEO feud over a fast food challenge. Kessler mocks Sundar's empathy experiment. The story spun into something bigger. Talk shows debated it. Analysts weighed in. Social media split into sides. But Sundar didn't respond. Not directly. He didn't post. He didn't argue. He just kept working. Because this was never about winning. It was about shifting something deeper. And then something happened that surprised even him. A video surfaced online. Not from Sundar. Not from his team. From Kenya. It was a simple vertical video. Recorded on her phone. Sitting in her room. She looked straight into the camera. I don't know a lot about CEOs. I don't know what most of them do all day. But I know what Sundar did in hours. He mopped the floor beside me. He got yelled at by customers. He cleaned up a spill without being told. He didn't talk about business. He asked about my grandma. That wasn't for attention. That was real. She paused. So if people want to say he faked it, fine. But he didn't fake it with us. The video exploded. Shared by millions. Commented on by celebrities, activists, other workers. It became a turning point. Sundar watched it from his office. Eyes misting by the end. He hadn't asked her to do it. He didn't even know she had recorded it, but somehow it said what he couldn't. His phone buzzed. A text from Maria. Saw Kenya's video. Powerful. Thank you for starting this. Another one came moments later from the CEO of a global hotel chain. I want in. Tell me where to begin. The movement was no longer his. It was growing on its own. A quiet, steady wave. Spreading across industries. Not as a trend. But as a reminder that leaders should not be above service. They should begin. With it. Asterisk. Full circle. Morning was quiet again. Like it had been on the first day. Except this time, Sundar wasn't walking uncertain, nervous, or pretending to be someone else. He wasn't in disguise. There was no hoodie pulled low over his face. No secret shift. This time, he came as himself. Not the CEO. Not the guest. Just a man who had returned. The McDonald's parking lot in Mountain View looked the same. The same red and yellow signage. The same drive-through speakers. But inside, everything had changed, not in the way things look, but in the way people carried themselves. It was subtle, but real. He stepped through the doors just as the sun began to rise behind him. Marie was already inside, wiping down a counter. She looked up, saw him, and gave a small smile, not the kind you give a celebrity, but the kind you give to someone who has been missed. You're early, she said. I didn't want to miss anything, he replied. She nodded and handed him a coffee. No words needed. Just a quiet gesture between two people who had shared something that no title, no headline, no viral post could fully explain. Sundar sat in a corner booth. The one near the window where he had once watched strangers come and go while wiping spills from the floor. Now he watched again, but this time with eyes that had seen the whole arc of the story. He watched a father carry a toddler to the register. He watched an older woman slowly unwrap her breakfast sandwich with trembling fingers. He watched a young boy staring through the glass, his nose pressed against it, watching the workers like they were superheroes. That's what this place was, he thought. Not just a restaurant, not just a chain. It was a stage where real people played out real lives every day. Every hour. Kenya walked in 10 minutes later. She wore her uniform, same as always, but something in her walk had changed. It wasn't slower, it wasn't faster. It was steadier. You came back, she said, sitting across from him. I told you I would. You've been on every screen. In the country, you don't have to prove anything. I'm not here to prove, he said. I'm here to learn still. Kenya looked out the window for a long moment, then turned back to him. You know they've started calling this place the store that changed the CEO? He smiled softly. I like that better than the CEO who changed the store. She laughed. Yeah, me too. The door swung open again. This time, a group of young workers entered, all wearing clean uniforms. Most of them looked nervous. One clutched a notebook. Another was fixing her name tag over and over. Marie walked up beside Sundar and nodded toward them. They're part of the new pilot program, she said. First batch of ground floor fellows? He looked at her, surprised. You didn't think I'd just sit back while you started a movement, did you? His chest warmed. The program had been an idea scribbled on a notepad, barely formed. A chance to connect young workers in fast food and retail with mentors, internships, skill training, and dignity. Now it was real. And Marie somehow had become part of its heartbeat. One of the young women stepped forward and held out her hand to Sundar. Hi, she said nervously. I'm Jessica. I just wanted to say thank you. He shook her hand gently. Double quotes, no, he said. Thank you for being here. Over the next hour, he stayed as the store came alive again. Orders called out. Fryers hissed. The bell on the door chimed with every new customer. But under the noise, there was something quiet moving beneath the surface, something new. A sense. Pride. A sense of recognition. At one point, Sundar stood near the counter, watching Kenya teach one of the new hires how to restock the soda machine. She wasn't rushing. She wasn't talking down. She was guiding, with patience, with respect, as if what they were doing really mattered, because it did. And then it happened. A boy came in with his mother, maybe 8 years old, messy hair, shy eyes. They ordered. Sat at a corner booth. After a few minutes, the boy walked up to the counter and tugged at Sundar's sleeve. Are you the guy from the video? He asked. Sundar knelt slightly to meet his eye level. I might be, he said with a smile. Why do you ask? The boy looked down at his shoes, then back up. My mom said you're important, but you work like us. Sundar nodded slowly. We're all important, he said. Every one of us. The boy thought for a second, then said, I want to work here someday. And just like that, Sundar felt something shift in his chest. Not because the boy wanted to work at McDonald's, but because the boy saw dignity in the people behind the counter. He stood up, heart full. Later, as the lunch crowd began to grow, Sundar knew it was time to go. He stepped outside into the warm afternoon light, hands in his pockets, breathing in the scent of fries and pavement and sunshine. He turned back one last time, looking at the glass doors. Inside was a world that had opened him up, not a corporate campaign. Not a leadership seminar. But a lesson in humility. A reminder that the highest titles still rest on the shoulders of the lowest paid workers, and the loudest voices mean little if they don't first listen to the quiet ones. He walked toward his car, but stopped just before reaching it. Then he turned his phone on and sent one final message. Group message. To every CEO who's reached out, thank you. Now go. Not for optics. Not for attention. Go because it's time to walk where others stand. Go see the people who make your world work. One day on the ground can change everything. As he hit send, the screen reflected his own face back at him. Same man. New heart.